is my 75 Duster, good old parchment with a vinyl roof. I've had a fair while now. The vinyl roof's gone, it's been painted over with brown POR 15. Gold Duster trim package with the trim strip between the tail lights and the back. It's also got the shock bumpers. They're definitely going to have to go. The grills are pretty toast. It ran on the good old slant 6 and 904 behind it. Bench seat was absolutely toast. Basically, there's a blanket just to stop the springs sticking into you. Dash pad was rooted, but the body itself wasn't too bad. It definitely needs some work. Rolled it into the garage. I think I drove it literally 10 metres and then basically started ripping it all apart. The front floors are toast. The rear floors are pretty pitted, so we'll be doing those as well. Doors are in pretty good condition. They got side intrusion bars, so they're a bit heavier than the doors on the earlier Dusters. There is a little bit of repair done to the driver's door where the mirror was mounted. But other than that, it's not too bad until we get to the back of the car. The rear wheel well is rusted out, so we're going to need to replace that. The trunk extensions are toast, as is the boot, the spare wheel well, and that is just basically, that's not even anything left. You just put your foot right through that, as you can see. But yeah, as I said, everything's repairable. It's just going to take some time. The fenders and that were in pretty good condition. There's quite a bit of extra little chrome trim and stuff on the car, which we're going to be ditching. But basically, I just stripped it out, got everything down, went through it all, worked out what needs to be done. Managed to break the windscreen taking it out. Seems to be a thing I do, is break windscreens. I need possibly a little bit less brutal on them. Obviously, we then decided slant 6, that's just no go. So we dropped that in the K-member out the bottom. Basically, so that work came out, cleaned out the engine bay. Now we had a bit of a blank canvas to work with, so we could just work out what we wanted to go in there. I threw the slant 6 on a pallet and basically tried to flog it for a couple of bucks to somebody who'd wanted one. I managed to pick up a 440, still standard. I ended up giving it a recondition in a can because I wasn't happy with the red and black paint on it. Just cleaned it up a little bit, so no real reason for it because it wasn't going to be the colour it was going to be. Just used some paint that I had lying around, and picked up a couple of heads and a Torque 2 intake and a needlebrook carb. Made it look a bit more like an engine. I threw some Mickey T valve covers on top of it, and then next was modifying the slant 6K to fit the Schumacher mounts. Basically, we just drilled some holes in this and then cut them down to clearance for the mounts. After that, I ended up bolting the K-member back onto the engine while the engine was still on the stand, just to mock up some headers and see how it all fitted. This wasn't very successful at all, to be honest. The passenger side one was okay, but the driver's side, that was a no-go. Had to crush the hell out of the tubes between the power steer pump and the engine just to make it fit. The tube from number 1 basically sat exactly where the joint is that fits onto the end of the power steer pump. So we fitted the 4-speed to it. It's an A833, and basically from there we worked towards raising it back up in the engine bay. We ditched the header off the passenger side because that just was not going to go up with the guard. With the air cleaner and the spacer and the carb, she sits very well high of the bonnet, so we're going to be cutting a hole in the bonnet and going to be using a 6-pack scoop on this. We will duct the 6-pack scoop from the bottom of the air cleaner base so that it tries to keep only cold air in it. I tried fitting up a moon timing cover, but there just wasn't the clearance for the water pump and the fans, so went back to a tin cover just to get the clearance fitted 10 and 12-inch spiral fans, and then basically started mocking up some headers with a nice kit. But I didn't get that far with it, so moved on to fitting a flip-top gas cap to the car, just for the looks. I'm not 100% sure on it yet, but we'll decide later. I pulled the heater apart and swapped the motor out for a smaller motor to allow for the valve covers to be able to be removed without having to do anything with the heater. Then I managed to get some Karuba seats. They were fitted originally to a Charger, but they came with the bases, which needed some modifications to make them fit. I had to lower them down and adjust up one side to allow for the Cadillac converter hump that's in the 75. I also managed to get hold of a center console. It had the fake wood grain on it. I spent a lot of time with the heat gun stripping it off to get rid of it, pretty much. But because I'm running a manual as well, I ended up cutting out the original hole for the shifter, and initially looked at just a universal Hurst boot, but wasn't happy with it. So they got some tiling trim and used that and some liquid metal to glue it in around the side, and used a B-body boot so I could use a square handle, and I made up an adapter to go from where the Hurst shifter was to go across so that the stick was central in the console. The factory A-body shifter's a little bit expensive for what I want to spend on it, so basically this bracket did the same thing. I changed the shift rods to a straight rod so that it was a better shift. I had to notch the cross member just a little bit to allow clearance so that they wouldn't rub. Really happy with how the shift feels and really positive. I made up a cardboard template to basically start working on laying out the dash. I want to do something similar to a Rocky Mountain dash, but I'd probably do something in fiberglass. On to installing some bonnet pins. I got them from Parts Mix. They come with the little bracket that goes through a little space in the front just above the headlights, which locks it in so that you could get them in the factory space. Really happy with how they turned out. Couldn't recommend them enough. Next was the bumper, which I talked about being 100 odd pounds. So I basically stuck that thing on a bit of a crash diet. I marked it out, and basically I chopped the center out of it, and then basically started drilling a whole lot of lightning holes in it to basically get rid of some weight. It basically ended up with 2 brackets, which I think I'll probably go back and cut some more out of. I think there's still too much weight in them. As it is, I took about 40 pounds out of them, and so definitely a lot lighter. Basically from there, I mocked the bumper back up on the car and had a look at the difference of where it is sitting normally versus where it now sits, compressed back in. We went with a reverse pedal box in there. Unfortunately, the master cylinder's in the way, so we're going to put the master cylinders back under the bonnet. From there, the house we owned, we sold. So basically, everything got packed up and went into storage.